My older sister married the wealthy young man from the city for money, while I was forced by our parents to be paired with a poor student from the village. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. The rich young man didn't even look at my sister, and on the day of their wedding, he left home to join the army, vanishing without a trace. Meanwhile, the poor student I married passed the university entrance exam and rose quickly through the ranks. When we returned to the village, he wore stylish, elegant clothes, and everyone praised me as the golden phoenix who flew from a humble chicken coop. But my sister, left alone in an empty house, couldn't resist temptation and ended up having an affair. By the time she was caught, she was already pregnant. I stepped in and saved her from punishment. Grateful and tearful, she personally made a pot of chicken soup for me. I never expected the soup to be poisoned. Just before I died, I forced her to drink a bowl too. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day we were choosing husbands. This time, my sister was the first to say she wanted to marry the poor student. That's when I realized I wasn't the only one reborn. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know that being the wife of a poor student wasn't as easy as she imagined. This time, I will live life on my own terms. Chapter 1. What? You want to marry that poor student? Lily, didn't you say you liked the rich young man from the city? His family is wealthy. If you marry him, you'll live a life of luxury. My mother was desperately trying to persuade my sister, but Lily held her head high and replied with arrogance, "So what if he's rich? I don't like him, that's it. I'm not marrying him. I'm marrying Diego." My mother's face creased with worry. But Diego's family has nothing. If you marry him, your life will be full of hardship. Everyone knew Diego. He was a poor student, though also from the city. But unlike the rich families, his had no connections or resources. Ever since they moved to the village under the reform policy, they could barely afford meat. The Ryan family, on the other hand, was a different story. Though they were also intellectuals sent from the city, they came from a prestigious and well-known background. If it weren't for recent government policies, no one in this remote mountain village would have seen someone of their status. My sister pouted and clung to our parents, acting all sweet and spoiled. They had always favored her, and seeing her like that, they didn't know what to do. "Lily, if you really want to marry him, we won't stop you. But we're just worried. We don't want you to suffer or regret it later." As soon as Mom softened, Lily hugged her tenderly. "Don't worry, Mom. I have a good eye for people. Diego is a hidden gem. I know I'll be happy marrying him." My parents exchanged worried glances, but didn't even look at me. And so they decided Lily would marry Diego while I would marry the rich young man from the city. I stayed quiet the entire time, making sure no one noticed I had also been reborn. When the marriage arrangements were finally confirmed, I let out a sigh of relief. Not having to marry Diego this time was the best news I could have hoped for. Chapter 2. What's so bad about being a widow? Being rich and powerful without needing a man, wasn't that the dream? Marrying Diego, a poor student with nothing to his name, had been a nightmare. His family had no land, and every task depended on earning work points. Diego always talked about the importance of studying and refused to work in the fields. All the big and small chores fell on my shoulders. In just a few years, my hair had already started to turn gray. My hands were full of scars. But for Diego, so he could study in peace, I endured it all in silence. I gritted my teeth and carried the burden. Now I wonder, can Lily handle that kind of suffering? To avoid any delay, my parents rushed to set the wedding date that very night. My sister and I would get married on the same day. However, our dowries couldn't have been more different. Lily took almost everything valuable in the house as her dowry. I was only given a quilt. I didn't feel the slightest bit sad. After all, hadn't it always been this way? Even though we were only a year apart in age, our parents treated us like night and day. She was their precious jewel, their pampered princess. I was the dirt beneath their feet, dust in the wind. On the wedding day, Lily walked up to me with smug pride. "Fiona, in this life, I get to be Diego's wife. You already had your good fortune, so this time you'll be the one left in an empty house. And when you get caught cheating, I'll be the one to save you." Malice gleamed in Lily's eyes. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about, sister? I don't understand. What do you mean by this life? What do you mean by an empty house?" Lily's expression changed briefly before she replied with irritation. "You'll understand once you get married." I said nothing more. It wasn't until the red bridal veil was placed over my head that I finally felt at peace. This time, I wouldn't spend my life laboring in the fields to support a man. This time, I would live for myself. I wouldn't depend on anyone. Diego's family could only afford a simple ox-drawn cart decorated with a few flowers. Lily glanced at it. Half it seemed modest. She climbed on with a bright smile. Meanwhile, the Ryan family, though not entirely pleased with the arranged marriage, ensured the ceremony was grand and cheerful. I was carried to their home in a luxurious sedan chair borne by 8 porters. As I stepped inside, I felt Lily's sharp gaze on me. Through the veil, I could just make out her lips mouthing the words, "Enjoy it while it lasts. Once you're there, you'll learn what true suffering is." I sat upright in the chair, unmoving, my mind drifting into memories of my previous life. Chapter 3. In my past life, Diego had also picked me up in an ox cart. His family was so poor they could barely put food on the table, let alone host a wedding banquet. On our wedding night, even the blanket on the bed was tattered. I had no choice but to light a lamp and spend the night sewing. At dawn, I got up to herd cattle and cut grass. Under the scorching sun, I helped Diego earn work points. He always prided himself on being a gentleman and refused to do any housework. All the domestic chores, starting the fire, preparing meals, receiving guests, fell to me. In the freezing winter months, I had to go down to the river to wash clothes. My hands were covered in chilblains. When Diego saw them, his eyes were full of contempt. A good woman's hands would never be this rough. Back then, I panicked and quickly hid my hands behind my back. I thought it was because my hands were ugly that he looked down on me. It wasn't until much later that I realized despised every part of me. I was like an old ox, endlessly toiling to hold the family together. Diego focused on his studies, but it took him 3 full years to pass the university entrance exam. Eventually, he was admitted to a university. During those 3 years, whether it was sweltering heat or bone-chilling cold, I worked every single day. We managed to save a bit of money. But once he left for the city, everything changed. He stopped caring about his studies and spent his days hanging out in dance halls and nightclubs. The money I had worked so hard to save was gone in the blink of an eye. Often, he didn't return home for days, and his parents blamed everything on me. "You don't even try to make yourself look decent. If I were a man, I'd be disgusted just looking at you. A woman like you deserves to lose her husband. A barren hen like you is useless." I swallowed their cruelty in silence. I didn't dare tell them that Diego had never touched me. He found my body too rough, nothing like the soft skin of other women. Even looking at me made him sick. But if I hadn't worked myself to the bone for him every day, maybe my skin would have been soft too. After we moved to the city, there were no more fields to work in, yet somehow life only got harder. Diego said serving his parents was my duty. After all, he only married me so someone could take care of them. But they weren't my parents. Why did it have to be me? My heart was full of questions, but I had no one to talk to. I didn't want to keep living like a dog in this house, constantly at others' beck and call. Just then, the state-run restaurant began hiring. I applied, and the floor manager, seeing that I was honest and hardworking, offered me a job. I was truly happy working there. Many of the customers were intellectuals, and during meals, they chatted about literature, art, and romantic stories. Sometimes I pretended to clean nearby, just to listen. Some kind customers even struck up conversations with me. Slowly, I became deeply fascinated by the world they spoke of. I started using my wages to buy beginner literacy books and taught myself to read. But when Diego discovered I was studying in secret, he tore my books to shreds. "Do you really think a peasant woman like you deserves to read? Serving my parents is your only worth. If I catch you doing it again, I swear I'll break your legs." Chapter 4. My thoughts returned to the present. At first, I thought this wedding would be a lonely affair, just for show. But Ryan was still by my side. Strong arms supported me as my head spun faintly. It wasn't until we entered the bridal chamber that I fully came to my senses. When a young, handsome man lifted my red veil, I finally realized this was my husband, the man I would share my life with. As I stared at him, Ryan's ears slowly turned red. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Is there something on my face? I quickly looked away. It's just you're very handsome. His ears turned even redder. You're pretty too, he replied awkwardly. Looking at his youthful, innocent face, I was momentarily dazed. I had seen this face before in my past life. Back then, I was working at the state-run restaurant. Although the country had strict rules against harassment, some bold men still harassed the waitresses with crude remarks. One day, while I was being bothered and had no idea what to do, this very face appeared like a guardian angel descending from the sky. At that moment, I truly thought he was my savior, but after saying, to serve the people, he had left and I never saw him again. Turns out, he had been my brother-in-law in my previous life. Now, despite the youthfulness of his face, I could already glimpse the steadiness and resolve he would grow into. Ryan was the first to break the silence. Fiona, there's something I'd like to talk to you about. I snapped out of my thoughts. You can tell me anything. We're husband and wife, now we should trust each other. Ryan hesitated, a little embarrassed. I want to join the army. It's been my dream for as long as I can remember to serve the country. But my parents are afraid I'll suffer in the military, so they've never allowed me to go. I originally planned to run away tonight, but when I saw you, I didn't want to leave anymore. In my past life, I was sure it had been the same. But with my sister's temper, there was no way they could have had this conversation peacefully. They probably argued and badly. I remembered hearing that when Ryan ran away in secret, it was my sister who reported him to their parents. On their wedding night, his family searched the entire village with torches, but in the end, they found nothing. Ryan had only left behind one sentence. You're the ones who married me to her, not me. From this day forward, I will never return. And Ryan kept his word. In my past life, even until the day I died, I never heard of him coming back to the village. If this has always been your dream, of course I'll support you, I said gently. But you know how worried your parents are. If you run away again, Ryan's face darkened instantly. So you're against it too? I shouldn't have told you. I hurried to reassure him. I never said I didn't support you. I'm just saying this isn't something I can decide on my own. Can you at least wait until tomorrow night to leave? If I'm pregnant, maybe your parents will feel more at ease. Chapter 5. My face flushed even more as the words left my mouth. Though I had been married in my past life, when it came to matters between a man and a woman, this was still my first time. A night of passion. I didn't expect that not only would Ryan stay the next day, but he would also accompany me to visit my family. At the entrance to the house, my sister saw Ryan and her gaze turned venomous. Weren't you supposed to enlist in the army? Why haven't you left yet? Ryan frowned, clearly annoyed. And what does it have to do with you whether I enlist or not? When Ryan furrowed his brow, his strong figure exuded an undeniable presence. Diego, standing beside Lily, timidly tugged on her sleeve, not daring to face Ryan. Lily's face flushed with rage, then paled, and then turned red again. Finally, she tossed me a haughty look. So, what if Ryan hasn't left yet? Sooner or later, he'll enlist. When he does, you'll be left all alone, with no one to keep you company. And I'll be living a luxurious life in the city as Diego's rich wife. I didn't bother to burst her bubble. It was only the second day of her marriage, and there were already signs of exhaustion in her eyes. I could imagine the cold breeze seeping through that old, tattered blanket from the night before. Yet Lily wore a radiant smile, suggesting they had consummated their marriage. My sister had been pampered since childhood, her skin far softer and more delicate than mine. What truly surprised me, though, was that Diego had actually touched her. Didn't he have some so-called white moonlight in his heart? I vividly recalled in my previous life how, after we moved to the city, Diego often went to the neighbor's house under the guise of helping his parents. At first, I naively thought it was just a friendly relationship, until one day I caught them entangled in bed. That's when I realized they were childhood sweethearts. Diego's time in the countryside had all been part of a plan to help her, but during his absence, her parents had married her off to a wealthy businessman. Both of them resented their forced marriages. It didn't take long for them to rekindle their relationship. So much for being devoted to his innocent childhood love. His loyalty was clearly flexible. As long as he found a woman attractive, his self-control vanished completely. For today's visit, Ryan had prepared many valuable gifts for my family. But I only brought a large rooster. After all, no matter what gifts I brought, my parents would never appreciate my efforts. I figured it was better to let those gifts benefit my own household. As expected, the moment my sister and I stepped through the door, all their attention went straight to her. Even though she brought nothing, my parents' faces lit up with joy. When they saw that I only carried a rooster, my mother scoffed, "You're coming home with just a rooster?" Ryan immediately spoke up to defend me. "Didn't Lily come empty-handed too? Why didn't you say anything to her?" Chapter 6. The moment my mother heard that, her expression turned indignant. "How can it be the same? Ryan's family is wealthy. What's a big rooster to them? Lily marrying into their family is already a sacrifice. How could we expect her to bring gifts too?" She wiped at her eyes dramatically as she spoke, but her hands didn't forget to snatch the rooster from mine. "Since you brought it, fine. But next time, if all you bring is another rooster, don't expect us to let you in," my mother snapped. Without wasting time, she quickly killed the rooster and began cooking it. It wasn't long before the rich aroma of chicken broth filled the courtyard. But when it was time to serve the food, everyone was stunned. The 5-kilogram rooster had been reduced to a single bowl of clear broth with only a trace of oil floating on top. Lily, however, had a large chicken drumstick in her bowl, while the rest of us had nothing but empty soup. My mother kept going on about how Lily needed nutrition and didn't seem to notice the discontented expressions around the table. Playing the part, Lily passed the drumstick to Diego. "Diego, you eat it. You're a student, you need proper nutrition to do well on your exams and get into a good university." Hearing this, my mother nodded approvingly and fished out another drumstick from the pot, placing it in my father's bowl. No one else was given anything special. I didn't bother to argue. Ryan glanced at me, read my expression, and chose to let it go as well. It wasn't until we returned to the Chin family's home that he finally spoke. "Fiona, is this the kind of life you've always had at home?" I nodded calmly. Ryan's eyes suddenly turned red. "From now on, I'll make sure you have a good life. Believe me, Fiona, once I join the army, I'll work hard, earn honors, and make you the wife of a general." I hadn't expected him to be so moved on my behalf. I had grown so used to my parents' favoritism that I never even considered it unfair. But now, someone was finally telling me it was unfair, that I had been mistreated. The resentment I had buried for so long suddenly rose to the surface. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and Ryan awkwardly tried to comfort me. It took me a while to calm down. "Ryan, let's go see your parents. I know you've wanted to enlist for a long time. Today is the last day to register, let's go." When his parents saw my swollen, red eyes, their first instinct was to assume Ryan had mistreated me. It took quite some time to convince them otherwise. I was the one who brought up his enlistment. Their faces darkened immediately. "Is this shameless boy forcing you? You just got married, and now he wants to run off to the army? What kind of husband does that?" Ryan and I knelt down before them. "Let the neighbors gossip all they want, that's their business. Ryan's dream is to serve, and I want to help him fulfill it. I don't mind waiting a few years. And who knows, with a little luck, I might already be pregnant." I timidly placed a hand on my belly. A look of understanding passed over his parents' faces. In the end, they reluctantly agreed. Chapter 7. After marrying into the Ryan family, my life was completely different from what it had been in my past life. I no longer had to rise before dawn to labor in the fields until nightfall. My in-laws used their connections to get me a job recording work points for villagers. All I had to do was distribute farming supplies in the morning and evening, then inspect the workers' daily progress at dusk. I never expected to run into Lily on my very first day of work. She was in the middle of a heated argument with Diego. "Diego, why aren't you doing any work? I'm out here breaking my back while you just stand around. Doesn't it bother you?" Diego replied impatiently, "I'm a scholar. Have you ever seen a scholar digging in the dirt every day? You should have known this would happen when you decided to take your sister's place and marry me." Lily immediately fell silent. She must have remembered her dream of becoming a wealthy city wife. A little hardship now was just a step toward that goal. Without another word, she returned to the field to continue planting and fertilizing. I looked around. It was already getting dark, and they hadn't even finished a third of the task. It seemed unlikely they'd earn any work points today. Just as I was about to leave, Lily spotted me. Fiona, what are you doing here? Trying to steal my man? Let me tell you, you're dreaming. Diego and I are already married, so you'd better behave and stop trying to take him away from me. I heard your husband already ran off. Didn't I warn you? That man couldn't be trusted. Not like my Diego. He's going to university and will become a high-ranking official. I looked at her smug expression and silently erased the work points I had recorded for her. Is that so? Well then, future wife of a great official, if you don't work harder today, you won't get any work points. Lily panicked. Fiona, you can't be this petty. Are you deliberately refusing to give me my work points? I pointed at the field in front of her. Look at what you've done today. This field is your responsibility, and you haven't even finished plowing it. Do you really think you deserve those points? No matter how reasonable my explanation was, my sister insisted that I was targeting her. The next day, my parents sent a message asking me to come home. Chapter 8. I had a feeling this was about Lily and the work points, and sure enough, before I even reached the front door, a broom came flying at me. Fiona, you've still got the nerve to come back? How dare you hurt your sister by denying her work points? My younger brother's loud voice rang from inside the house. Then my mother came out, playing the role of the kind parent, and gently took my arm. Fiona, this must be a misunderstanding, right? Your sister cried for hours after she got home. Why not just give her those work points? We're family, why be so petty? I looked at them, speechless. Today it's giving my sister work points. Tomorrow it'll be something else, and the day after that, maybe the neighbors will come asking for favors too. How am I supposed to do my job like that? As soon as my mother heard that, her gentle expression disappeared. Fiona, you've really become insolent. You dare to talk back to your own parents now? Just because you're married doesn't mean you can stop obeying us. If you won't do as we say, we still know how to put you in your place. And who exactly is going to put my wife in her place? Came a familiar voice from behind me. I turned around and to my surprise, it was Ryan. It had been over half a year since I last saw him, and now he looked even stronger. His expression was serious and intimidating enough to silence a room. But the moment his eyes met mine, his gaze softened. It was like seeing a fierce tiger suddenly smile and whisper, "Don't be afraid." For some reason, just seeing him made my chest feel warm. If you're planning to take advantage of the system, he said coldly, don't blame me for reporting you. At your age, a prison sentence could be the end. For people like my parents, even the mere mention of jail or being reported to the authorities was enough to make them tremble. Their arrogance vanished in an instant. Ryan, what are you talking about? We were just joking with Fiona, that's all. Silly girl, your husband's back and you didn't even tell us. If we had known, we would have killed a chicken to make a good soup. Ryan's expression darkened, clearly remembering the last time they served that greasy, watered-down soup. Forget it. If someone really cares, they don't need to be reminded. As Ryan led me away from the house, my steps felt light and unsteady. In my past life, he had never come back, not even once. How could he have returned after just half a year this time? I couldn't help sneaking glances at him. Ryan sighed, slightly annoyed. If you have questions, just ask. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Why did you come back so soon? I asked. His expression shifted slightly, almost irritated. Are you saying you didn't want me to come back? I quickly shook my head. Of course not. I was just surprised. And a little happy. Ryan cupped my face in his hands and looked me in the eyes. Only a little happy? Embarrassed, I lowered my gaze. Maybe more than a little. Just as we were having that tender moment, my sister's voice rang out behind Ryan. Well, look who it is. Fiona, sneaking around with another man while your husband's gone. Everyone, come see this shameless woman. She should be thrown into the river. Chapter 9. Ryan tried to turn around, but I gripped his hand tightly. If he spoke up now, wouldn't it be exactly what they wanted? Ryan caught my signal and bowed his head, staying silent. In no time, a crowd had gathered, following behind Lily, like a parade. At the front was my father. In his haste, he hadn't even realized the man beside me was Ryan. As soon as he saw me, he raised his hand and slapped me hard across the face. How could I have raised such a shameless daughter? Your husband's away, and you're already messing around with another man? Let the neighbors decide your punishment. Whatever it is, I won't object. Exactly. What my sister did is so disgraceful, she shouldn't even show her face. According to village rules, she should be thrown into a pig cage and drowned in the pond. Lily looked absolutely desperate to see me ruined. I calmly scanned the faces surrounding me. Do you have any proof I was with another man? Lily stepped forward, shouting at the top of her lungs. You were hugging some strange man in broad daylight. Isn't that enough? Or do we need to catch you in bed with him to prove it? Fiona, how shameless can you be? Since when does being with my own husband count as being with another man? As soon as I said that, Ryan lifted his head and turned around. My father's and Lily's faces went pale in an instant. How can this be? My father stammered. Ryan, weren't you supposed to be at the military base? How did you come back without telling anyone? And you, Lily's voice trailed off into a weak whisper. You didn't come back in our last life, but I heard her clearly. In our past life, Ryan's absence had been her doing. She had pushed him too far, and with his pride, he left without ever looking back, leaving only those harsh parting words behind. If things had gone differently, maybe she would have gotten her way. But that wasn't the case anymore. Once the crowd realized that the strange man was actually my husband, they quickly lost interest and began to disperse. Ashamed, the crowd scattered without a word, leaving only my father and Lily behind. Refusing to give up, Lily cautiously stepped toward Ryan. Ryan, she whispered, don't say I didn't warn you. While you were away, there have been some unpleasant rumors spreading around the village. It's so humiliating to hear. If you don't want to become a joke, you'd better look into the truth quickly. Lily probably thought Ryan would thank her for the warning. Instead, what she got was a sharp slap across the face. Chapter 10. Lily clutched her cheek and collapsed to the ground in disbelief. Did you really just hit me, Ryan? Ryan shook his hand indifferently. Did you think I didn't know who's been spreading those rumors around town? Your sister respects you as her elder and has tolerated you. But I won't. If you continue to stir up trouble or spread lies about my wife, that's interfering with a military marriage. Believe me, I can have you arrested and thrown in jail immediately. At that moment, Diego finally arrived, panting and out of breath. The moment he saw the scene, he slapped Lily across the other cheek. With both sides of her face swollen and red, it looked surprisingly symmetrical. Lily, instead of doing your work properly, who gave you permission to stir up trouble? Then he turned to Ryan and me, forcing a smile. I had no idea she'd snuck off and caused such a mess. From now on, I'll make sure to keep an eye on her. My feelings toward Diego were complicated. Deep down, he was a proud scholar, there was no doubt about that. But a true intellectual with self-discipline should also be the most ethical and respectful. In my previous life, although Diego had hit me, it was only after I found out about his affair with his so-called first love. But this version of Diego seemed quicker to anger, far less refined. When he turned around, I noticed the torn sleeve of his shirt. It seemed that this time, my sister was not nearly as hardworking or self-sacrificing as I had been in my past life. Diego's dream of being a pampered scholar who never lifted a finger was slipping further away. The couple had been worn down by the pressures of life, and both had become more short-tempered. I returned to my in-laws' home. Ryan said he was on family leave and stayed for a full 3 days before returning to base. Seeing how much stronger he'd become reassured my in-laws, and they began involving me in the family business. Every few days, I'd run into Lily outside. The venom in her gaze was sharp enough to cut flesh. I knew the real conflict, the breaking point, was drawing near. The university entrance exams were approaching. My sister, still clinging to her dreams, sent Diego to take the test, convinced she'd soon become the wife of a high-ranking official. But this time, she and Diego argued constantly, major fights every 3 days, minor squabbles every 2. There was no way Diego could concentrate on his studies. He had even developed the nasty habit of hitting her. Whenever he couldn't win a verbal argument, he turned to fists and kicks. Whenever I saw them in public, one or both of them had bruises on their foreheads or cuts on their lips. Many villagers found the drama entertaining. After all, in a small village like ours, there were no secrets. Everyone remembered how my sister had thrown tantrums and made a scene to marry Diego. And now, look at how their life turned out. I continued living according to my own plan. I had a deep desire to change my fate through knowledge, but I also knew that with the few books I had read so far, aiming for the college entrance exam was still just a dream. So, I balanced two roles, learning to manage the family business during the day and staying up late at night to study by candlelight. Fortunately, my in-laws were open-minded and saw no problem with a girl wanting to study. Ryan even had someone from the army send me the latest textbooks. With that, my days were full, managing the household by day, studying by night. Life felt meaningful and fulfilling. Chapter 11. The next time I heard news about the couple was the day the university entrance exam results were released. As expected, Diego failed once again. In my previous life, even with all my support, it had taken him 3 full years to get into university. This time? Forget 3 years, she probably wouldn't pass even if he tried for 10. Time flowed like water, and soon the height of summer arrived in our 3rd year. As I stood among the crowd of exam candidates, a wave of emotion washed over me. I had once envied them. After 3 years of self-study, I wondered if I had finally reached their level. This exam would be the answer. As I entered the exam hall, I ran into Lily. She came over pretending to be sweet, looping her arm through mine. Sister, are you taking the college entrance exam too? You can't take a test on an empty stomach. I made 2 pancakes here, have one. Without waiting for me to refuse, she stuffed the pancake into my mouth, chewing the dry, pasty pancake. I politely thanked her with a couple of kind words before turning and heading into the exam hall. In a corner where no one could see me, I spat out the pancake in disgust. I didn't know if my sister had done something to it on purpose, but one thing was clear: she never wanted me to succeed. During the exam, I performed quite well, and by the time I came out, I was in a great mood. Lily, on the other hand, didn't look too pleased. Why are you just coming out now? Weren't you supposed to? I raised an eyebrow and asked, supposed to what? My sister stammered, unable to finish her sentence. In the distance, Ryan was waving at me. He had taken time off just to come pick me up. How did it go, sweetheart? Do you think you did well? I rested my chin on my hand and shook my head. I'm not sure. It's my first time taking the exam. I think I did okay, but we'll see when the results come out. Over the years, I had watched Lily closely. After failing once or twice, her initial anxiety had turned into indifference. Maybe she was remembering how, in our previous life, Diego had finally passed in his 3rd year. So this time, she was especially determined. Just like in my past life, she took on all the household responsibilities, big and small. She even tried her best to control her temper and avoid arguments. But what she hadn't expected was that even in his 3rd year, when he seemed more confident than ever, Diego still failed. And yet, my name was proudly displayed at the top of the list. Chapter 12. Unable to believe the news, Lily rushed to confront me. Fiona, how did you get into university? You didn't even make it in our past life. Why is it that I've suffered so much, and I still can't become the wife of a powerful man? Why do you get to live a luxurious life in both lives? Her hysterical outburst drew a large crowd. Diego, defeated and miserable, saw the commotion and tried to pull Lily away despite his state. But Lily slapped him hard. You're useless. 3 years, and you still couldn't do it. You're not even as good as Fiona. Diego covered his face, clearly humiliated. It was one thing to argue at home, but being slapped in public was unbearable. Without thinking, Diego slapped her back. And just like that, the couple began fighting in front of everyone. Taking advantage of the chaos, I pulled Ryan away and quietly left. I had no intention of getting involved in their mess. Those two deserved each other, and the best thing they could do was stay together and destroy one another. Not long after, I moved to the city to attend university. To my surprise, I ran into Diego there. Hadn't he failed the entrance exams? I later found out the truth had used his connections to attend remedial classes in the city. Lily, likely driven by jealousy, was working harder than ever, even more than she had in our past life. Every penny she earned, she sent to Diego, believing her husband was studying diligently to finally pass and enter university. But what I saw was something completely different. The money she sent was spent directly at clubs and dance halls. While he pretended to be up at dawn and burning the midnight oil, he was actually wasting everything on parties and alcohol. Another 2 years passed, and Diego still hadn't passed the exams. Lily, having reached her breaking point, went to the city to confront him. What she found was her so-called scholarly husband dancing in a club with another woman in his arms. Lily snapped. She grabbed a beer bottle nearby and smashed it over Diego's head. Chapter 13. Blood gushed from Diego's scalp. Right there on the dance floor, they began to fight. Diego throwing punches, Lily slapping back. It didn't take long for the security patrol to arrive. Both of them were arrested on the spot. It wasn't easy to separate them. They were locked up together, and at first, it seemed like just another case of domestic violence. But no one expected that the same night, Diego would lose control and kill Lily. He shouted like a madman, "Everything's wrong. It all went wrong. My wife was supposed to be Fiona. This is all your fault. If you hadn't forced me to marry you, I'd be in university right now." Lily's body was found in a horrific state, brutally disfigured. When the police called me to identify the body, I could barely recognize her. Upon seeing me, Diego completely lost it. "It was supposed to be you. You were meant to be my wife," he screamed hysterically. "Why did I end up with her? I was supposed to be a university graduate, a high-ranking official. How did I end up in this hell?" Diego's delusional rant convinced everyone he had gone insane. That's when I realized Diego had been reborn too. But so what? Being reborn at this point in time couldn't change anything. All I could do was watch as the life he once had slipped through his fingers, dragging him into eternal ruin. Diego was confined to a psychiatric hospital, where his madness only deepened. Every day, he stuffed disgusting and inedible objects into his mouth. I went to see him once, and caught him putting worms into his mouth. The sight was so nauseating I almost threw up. Ryan, who had come with me, frowned and spoke in a jealous tone. "Diego is insane, and you still came to see him? What's so interesting about him that you didn't come visit me instead?" Ryan had become a high-ranking military officer, yet he still had that jealous, possessive streak. Every time he looked at me, his eyes held the pleading gaze of a puppy. I knew his temperament well. It was easy to calm him with a little reassurance. "I just wanted to see how miserable he's become," I said. All right. I won't visit him again. Happy now?" Ryan gently turned my face toward him, apparently satisfied with my answer. Then he took my hand and led me away from the psychiatric hospital. The path ahead was bathed in golden sunlight. This year, I was about to graduate, finally becoming the kind of person who had once felt unreachable to me in my past life. And yet, even after everything, it still felt a bit surreal. But holding Ryan's hand, I felt an infinite strength flowing into me. In my previous life, I had been trapped in a tragic marriage. This time, I had finally set everything right,